In this video, I'm going to let you in on one of the top cash flow killers that, if left unchecked, will devalue your property and make your cash flow go negative. Hi, I'm Christian with Landlord Advocates. We're all about providing you with the tools and resources to make sure that you make more money and you get to keep some more in your pocket. This video is a part of the full 27-point Cash Flow Killer Masterclass, and you can download it for free right now if you click the link here or here. With that, let's get started and dive right in. Let's take a look at Cash Flow Killer. How about lucky number 3? Fog of mirror approvals. Now this has to do with placing the tenant into a property, okay? And I would argue that out of the 27 points on this board, that number 3 is lucky number 3. It's my favorite because I think it is the most important, okay? Let's talk about why. The tenant is in your property, okay, and they're the ones that make this entire thing possible. They're basically the heart of this economy, right, between tenant and landlord. They're the people that pay you. They're the way that they make your money, okay? They're the people that are going to treat your property right or treat it wrong, okay? They are the heartbeat to this entire operation. So we have to make sure that we're not doing approvals of tenants by just letting them be able to fog a mirror and saying, okay, you're in. That's not what we want here, okay? We have to vet them properly. Now, there's quite a few points that we can go over that really can help you become a better landlord by placing the tenant if you're self-managed, right? If you're self-managed, by following these few steps, if you have the resources to do so, then great. I guarantee if you follow these, you'll have so much better luck. Now, for those of you looking for property management companies, you have to make sure that they are also doing these, because a lot of companies will skip around this and cut corners to save costs and save money, but they're going to probably not put the best tenant in your property, okay? But they're all about money sometimes, okay? They're all about just shoving people in your property so they can start making money. So for those of you looking for property management companies, that's something you have to look out for. Okay, so let's actually talk about these points, okay? Now, you can go on Google or whatever, or hear from a friend the best way to vet a tenant if you have other landlord friends, okay? It really has to do with wisdom, experience, how long you've been doing it, and sure, people work out their own systems and are pretty set in their ways sometimes. But this is a lot of years of experience and knowledge and wisdom in this that I can tell you that if you follow these 4 or 5 things, I guarantee you have a much better experience. Okay, some of them might seem obvious, some of them might not be as obvious, but let's talk about the first thing. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, I want to talk about credit scores for a second because that's kind of the number one thing that people will typically look for. Okay, looking at credit scores with these people for prospective tenants, you have to be careful, but you have to be a little bit lenient sometimes, okay? A lot of markets in this country, okay, over the recession in the last few years, a lot of people took really big hits, don't have great credit scores. During the crash, a lot of people lost their income. So not a lot of people have the credit scores that they used to. They're still recovering, okay? But when you're looking at someone's credit, you got to make sure it's not complete garbage. You got to make sure the score isn't totally horrible, because that can usually say that they're not very good at paying their bills. But I said this is number 1 out of our list here because it's not the most important to me, at least. Some people it really is. But you have to get a number in your head and say, okay, if it's below this number, I'm not going to accept them. But, sometimes just talk to the people. If you're self-managed, just have a conversation. Be like, I see your credit score is really low. Tell me about what happened. And if they said, give you an actual legitimate sounding story, be careful. They could obviously lie to you, but just, make sure, have a conversation, kind of get, gauge for what they're saying. And if it's something that's, happened to them, maybe their business, fell, or, there's some legitimate reason and they're good people, I wouldn't let that stop you from placing them in your property or accepting them. Okay, the second thing is I want to talk about background checks. Now, again, this might seem like an obvious thing, but here's what's sometimes not so obvious. Self-managed people, if you have the resources to do this, you have to make sure that you're not doing a local background check, but you have to be doing a national background check. Pay that little bit extra, pay the extra money to do the national background check. It's a little more expensive, but you have to realize, okay, think about it. If your property is in Florida and the tenant is prospective tenants coming from New York City, the issue with a local background check is you're not going to be able to really see what they were doing up in New York and looking at their background up there. So you have to, you have to look at the full picture. You have to get the full story. And sometimes that costs a little bit more money up front. And property management companies sometimes can skimp on that because it is more expensive to run that national background check. So, if you're interviewing them, that could be a really good question. Making sure when you're talking to them about their tenant placement process, make sure that they're actually doing national background checks, because tenants that aren't such good tenants that are coming from other states, they try to prey on self-managed people and horrible property management companies. It's easier to do on the self-managed people, of course, but they know that if they're not going to need a national background check, that they have a little bit more of an easier time to get into a property. Now, the third thing is really strictly with property management companies, okay? This isn't so much for the self-managed people, but you have to make sure that these companies aren't allowing their salespeople to be the ones that place the tenants. Sure, a salesperson is wonderful to show the property, right? That's their job. They're the ones that take the tenants out to your home or your property and say, open up the doors, put all the lights on and say, go ahead, have a look around. Any questions, let me know. They let them know the price. And they're the people that are there to negotiate prices if the tenants want to try to negotiate the rent. That's their job. Their job should not be approving tenants. And to me, it's so obvious because I'm around this business and I understand how it works. But to some landlords, it might not be so obvious who are looking for property management companies. And you say, what's the big deal? Who cares if they are the ones that do the approval process? It's because of the nature, the way that they're paid, okay? Salespeople aren't paid by paychecks, right? They're not an hourly employee. They're not 9 to 5 people. They work their own hours. They get to do what they want, and they're commission-based. So you see that conflict of interest? If they show a tenant a property and they say, the tenant really likes it, they kind of develop a little bit of a friendship almost. They're having conversation at the property. They're kind of becoming, like chums, if you will. Okay, not only is that a reason that they're going to want to accept them, to make the family happy, and, make the tenant happy, but they also know that they're going to get a check really fast. Okay, so they're in their mind as a salesperson is, okay, let's get going here. Let's accept them. Let's shove them into the property. We're on to the next thing, right? They're all about on to the next, kind of fill their funnel of checks, if you will. So you see that issue. You can't have a property management company that lets the salespeople show the property and make the approvals. So how do you get around that? Okay, a good company is going to have other staff that they would usually refer to as an assistant property manager or APMs, okay? They're not the actual people that are out showing, doing the sales end. They just are 9 to 5 people that, do the day-to-day stuff. They talk to tenants, they deal with, they do the leasing, they do issues like that. Okay, these aren't people that are getting paid commission. So they have no conflict of interest when they're doing the approval process, okay? So the way it should work, if you're with the right company, it should be that the salesperson shows the property, they get a filled out application, they set it on the desk of the hourly people, and then they just look at the cold hard facts and they get to make the decision. That way you're eliminating any issues of people just trying to make money or salespeople just trying to get checks faster and faster and faster, okay? It's just a total conflict of interest thing. So the fourth thing I want to talk about is past evictions. Now, this, again, might seem obvious, but this kind of could play into, I would say maybe a landlord's guilty conscience almost. And good property management companies know not to do this. But I can't tell you how many of them actually still will do this, which is just, again, it really surprises me. It's just this whole fog and mirror approval system. You have to make sure that previous tenants, when they're doing an application, that they don't have any past evictions. Absolutely not. There's no room for it. And that might sound harsh, but somebody that got evicted from a property, okay, tells me about the person. How, you kind of think, how hard is it? Just be in the property, pay your rent on time, take care of it. That's it. Sure, some things happen. Maybe they lost their job or someone in the family got a terminal illness and other costs come up. That's life. It happens. Now, sometimes those evictions can be discharged, okay? Like I said, things do happen. So if it's discharged by an actual judge, okay, our court system, somebody found that there's legitimate reason, there was a mix-up, or there's a miscommunication, whatever it is, and it's discharged, then sure, that's fine. A lot of companies that are good will say okay to discharge evictions. And for self-managed people, yes, you can get around that. But in general, if they're not discharged, past evictions, absolutely not. Do not rent to them. They can give you every excuse in the book. They can give you every reason in the book, but this is their livelihood, right? If you have a past eviction, it's really tough to rent, and they prey on people. Okay, they prey on self-managed people usually because they know that they don't have the proper system or the proper points to follow, like we're going over now. And they know that they can get away with renting a property with somebody that doesn't look for these things. So this 1.4, yes, absolutely do not rent to people with past evictions if they're not discharged. So the last thing that you really need to look for, okay, I saved it for last because I think it's the biggest. Okay, what is our biggest concern here, right? So we've already gone through making sure they're good people. Okay, we've already made sure that they're good with the law, they're good at paying their bills on time, and we've made sure that they haven't done anything in the past that would get them kicked out of a property. Okay, that's all good and great. But what's the last thing to look for? And the fifth thing I saved for last because personally I think it's the most important and it's the best thing you can do as a landlord, or if you're a property management company, it's the best thing that they can do. And not a lot of companies will take the time to do this necessarily or do it correctly. Okay, what am I talking about? We just went over the 4 things and we know at this point that these people are good or bad people, if they're in trouble with the law or if they're not, if they pay their bills on time, or if they've done anything in the past that could possibly get them kicked out of a property or have some horrible thing happen, okay? All that's clear at this point. So the last thing to really make sure is that they have the correct income to where we know that they can pay their rent, not just for the first month, but I'm talking for the full term of the lease, making sure that they're secure in their financial life to make sure that they can pay you on time and the right amount. Okay, this I would call income verification. Okay, now, yes, I said some property management companies will do this, but they can do it kind of, excuse my French, but I'd say half-assed is really the way to say it. They do it half-assed because the way that they can do it sometimes is just ask the tenant, say, how much do you make a month? They give you a number and they say, okay, that sounds good, okay? That's not verification. I'm talking about calling the employer of that tenant, looking at their bank statements, get 3-4 months of bank statements. Okay, or if they're retired, look at their bank account. Ask for a printout of their checking or savings account. See how much money they have. You have the right to do that. If they're going to live in your property, ask for those things. Okay, you have to make sure that they have the money. Okay, it's not just as simple as asking the tenants themselves. You need proof. Okay, income verification, because they can just say whatever they want to get into the property. So what are you looking for, right? Now you have bank statements. You're talking to their employer. You're seeing how much they make. What is the magic number to look for? Okay, a good general rule of thumb, and this is 20, 30 years of experience talking, that you have to know that they are making at least 3 times the rent. A great ratio is 3 to 1. So whatever the rental amount is per month, let's say it's $1,000, easy math, you multiply that by 3, they need to make at least $3,000 a month, okay? That's anybody in the property combined income. So even if anybody over 18 usually, so husband, wife, maybe a couple older kids in the property, anybody that they can say is on the lease that is contributing to that rent, just combine their income, their total together, and it has to be 3 times the amount. That's just a good rule of thumb for financials, because if they're making 3 times, they have enough for their food, they have enough for rent, they have enough for their other bills, and then they would have any money left over. So 3 times, 3 to 1 ratio. Okay, so in summary, these are the 5 things that you can really look for. If you're a self-managed person, self-managed landlord, if you follow these, I guarantee you're gonna have so much more success. And if you're looking for a property management company, make sure they're doing these 5 things. Okay, remember, good credit scores, you can determine what it is. So good credit scores, they have to do a national background check, or self-managed, do a national background check. Make sure it's not just local, so you can get a really good feel for who these people are. Okay, we're talking about evictions. No past evictions, absolutely not. I promise you, it'll save you so much time and headaches and money. Of course, if they're discharged, like I said, that's a different story. We need to talk about property management companies. Their leasing company, or their leasing people not being the ones making the decision. It has to be a salary person, like an assistant property manager. And the last thing, income verification, the biggest one, making sure they make enough money. If you guys follow these 5 points, or have a company that's following those 5 points, I guarantee you're gonna have a much, much better experience being a landlord. That was just one of the 27 cash flow killers that's waiting for you inside the full masterclass, which you can download for free by clicking the link here or there. All you have to do is simply enter your details and you'll get instant access to the complete masterclass training for free. You might be asking yourself, why is it free? And if I was in your shoes, I'd be thinking the same thing. We're planning on putting this on the market for $197 in the future, but before we do that, we need some documented success stories. So go on over, watch the full masterclass, give us your feedback if you think it's worthy. With that, we'll see you on the other side. We can't wait.